This is Let's Talk Off Camera. For those of you who don't know me, my name is Kelly Ripa, and I wanted to have a place where we could have an uncensored, blunt conversation while taking a deep dive into the issues that we all face. Originally, I wanted to call this podcast Not Another Fucking Podcast because it was pointed out to me by more than one person in this room that I was the last person on earth without a podcast and that this is an oversaturated market. However, in my own defense, I've been a talk show host for 23 years now, and the best conversations I have are the ones that happen off camera. I always find that those are the conversations that are the most meaningful, the most insightful, people are the most honest when there's not a camera involved. Oddly enough, they are not put off by recording devices, just the camera. So this is basically a podcast that allows me to not wear hair and makeup and not wear pants. And that's why we are all doing this. Today, we're going to talk about something that is certainly near and dear to several of our hearts. It's called surviving marriage, okay? Now, I have a very special guest today, this being our first episode. This is a man that I've survived marriage with for over 26 years. He is my baby daddy, Mark Consuelos. He's going to be here. And later on in the show, Mark and I will introduce you all to our actual marriage counselor, our couples therapist. She's really smart. She's really insightful. And I think that a lot of people will benefit from hearing her expertise as opposed to a married couple at each other's throats. And since the cameras are off, I'm going to paint a picture for all of you. Right now, I am sitting in my 25-year-old son's former bedroom. He's flown the nest. On my right-hand side are two friends and co-workers for 23 years, Albert Bianchini and Jan Chalet. Albert and Jan, we've worked together a long time. We've known each other a long time. And you both are in long-term marriages. Jan, Albert, want to weigh in?
I mean, I've been married for almost 23 years. And I will say there's ups and downs. It's never a straight line.
Right.
But, you know, it takes a lot. A lot of people go through to therapy. We haven't done that, but not to say it's not in our future.
We literally are newbies at couples therapy. So you've got to wait till you get to the 25th anniversary mark where you start really contemplating faking your own death. You know.
No, I think like there's definite periods of times where I didn't like him that much, but I always loved him. Like I've never pictured my life without him.
Yeah, that's a common theme. Albert, now you're not married.
Not married.
You've been in a relationship for how long?
22 years.
22 years. So we're all lifers.
Yeah.
Now I recall, I'm going to take you back in time. Mark and I had gotten a rose trellis, and we were really proud of this rose trellis. And you guys came over to see it. And Mark said, because Mark was an ordained minister, he said, you know, I can marry you two right here. And you guys made a big political statement. Wow. You said, until gay marriage is passed, until marriage is available to everyone, we are not going to do it.
And your excuse now?
We're now at the if it ain't broke, why fix it? 22 years ago, gay marriage was illegal, and you had to go to Massachusetts to get married. And when it came up, Kyle's like, fuck that. I'm not going up to Massachusetts to get married.
What's wrong with Massachusetts?
I'm paying taxes in New York State.
We have
Why
listeners.
Can't I get married in New York State?
We have listeners in Massachusetts.
We don't live in Massachusetts.
Well, but there are still good people there.
I also think that the kid factor plays a huge factor.
Well, you read the whole Michelle Obama quote.
Absolutely.
Where
and
she
I can
spent 10
relate to
years
that.
of her marriage not liking her husband.
Right.
And I want to know which 10 years were they.
Well, for me, it was right when our first son was born because I would get mad every time he walked out of the door to go back to work because I'm like, oh my God, this is my new life. This isn't what I thought this was going to be. It was just really like a shell shock to me. And it was like for my marriage, I was mad at him.
Yeah. I said that too, that my life changed 180 degrees and Mark's did not change at all. Everything went on business as usual, play as usual, vacation as usual. weekends with the guys as usual, and I had
Yeah.
screaming children and pink eye. And it was stressful because we were both working, yet it seemed like he had so much more leisure time. So, having said that, let's get to my first guest, Emmy-nominated actor, father of my children as far as he knows, husband of over 26 years, work partner, play partner, life partner, Mark Consuelos, everybody.
Hey there.
Hi.
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 So we're talking about surviving marriage, and I thought you would be a great first guest because you've been surviving marriage to me for a really long time.
Yeah.
How do you feel about it? How do you feel it's going?
I think it's going great. I overheard some of the previous conversation about when we first had kids, and I agree. I definitely had a lot more free time. I think I learned that yes doesn't always mean yes. Sometimes yes means no. You were like, fly, go, do what you need to do. But
Yeah, but I never really meant
you
that.
did not mean it. But I will remember one time when the kids were young, and specifically Joaquin. He was our third child, and he just stopped breastfeeding, so he was not sleeping through the night still. He was getting up to feed, but it was time for him to stop getting up through the night. Mm-hmm. And you went on a remote to Chicago for a few days. And so you left, and it was just me and Joaquin. And I looked at him around bedtime, around 8 o'clock at night or whatever bedtime was. And I said, dude, I'll see you tomorrow. And I closed the door, and I went into my room down the hall, which is pretty far down the hall, closed my door, and I went to bed. And
And you slept through the night?
I slept through the night.
You slept like a baby, did you?
I slept like a baby, and I woke up around 7 o'clock in the morning, went down to check on him. He was still sleeping. And around 8:30, 9 o'clock, he woke up.
Because he was exhausted from crying all night.
Maybe, but that was it. We had broken him. I broke him. And when you came back from Chicago, he didn't get up in the middle of the night anymore.
When I came back from Chicago, one of the 3 babysitters I hired,
I was by myself.
that is not true. They worked in 8-hour shifts.
I tried to get more, but there was no more.
The woman, Paula, said to me, you can't die. That's what she said to me. You can't die.
I will say, he did, and I don't know, he probably did scream all night, but I Ferberized him.
just in the one night?
One night, and that was it. He's like, this guy means business.
Well, here's the thing that I find so interesting because I've got like divorce rates. Did you know that people file for divorce between January and March?
You told me that.
Isn't that interesting?
I guess it's a New Year's resolution.
Do you feel like you could go at any time?
No, I feel pretty confident.
You're feeling good?
Today I'm feeling pretty confident. But I think it's probably has to do with a lot of things. I think it has to do with all those parties, all those family events where you're sitting with, they're highly stressful, and I think it just breaks people.
Yeah.
I think I really don't want to be part of that family anymore. And, his family is horrible. And I see that I can't imagine another Christmas with this fool.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, I never feel that way about marriage, but I feel that way about everything else. Like January through March, I want to fire everyone. I want to quit my job. I want to burn my house to the ground.
I know what that is.
What?
Seasonal depression.
You think?
I think that you are very sensitive to the lack of vitamin D and sunlight, and you love the sun. And when you're getting sun, it affects your mood in a positive way. Now, from January to March in New York, on the East Coast.
Set the scene for what it looks like right
it
now.
looks like a black and white film, but it's not. We're not in a black and white film. It is dreary. It's raining. And this is what it's like for 3 months, 4 months at a time.
It looks like Loch Ness.
Yep.
So listen to this. This is something that should really scare us.
Okay.
Okay? People who get married between the ages of 20 and 25 have a 44 to 60% chance of getting divorced.
Wow. If you throw in the fact that we eloped and didn't tell anybody for a month,
Yeah.
I mean, how many of those marriages worked out?
0%.
Zero. We're unicorns.
Okay, but now this is really scary. It's indicated that people over 50 are more likely to get divorced now than any other time in history. And that is us.
Yeah. We're in the 50 zone.
Do you notice how I look at you accusatorily? Like,
Yes.
what are you planning?
Look.
They call this a gray divorce, by the way, which I resent.
So I think that people in the 50s, a few things happen, right? So kids are out of the house for most families around 50.
And those little energy vampires that
They're
you've
out.
distracted yourself from.
Yeah, and I think that the parents, they make their kids everything. It's like it's the glue in the family. They really invest so much in their happiness through their children, and then when the children move out of the house, what are you left with?
But I think that we made time for ourselves.
We did. We definitely took time for ourselves. But I think it was one of the major things that I was thinking about is that we were going to be in a big transition.
Okay, so here's the thing.
Mm-hmm.
I had been bringing up marriage counseling for about 10 to 15 years.
Right.
And you brought it up once, and we went to marriage counseling.
Right.
So why does everything have to be your idea?
No, I don't think that's fair. I was wondering when the right time was going to be for me to bring it up. I was a coward. I was scared. I was scared that you'd say no because I really thought we could like work on stuff. And
Like,
so,
what did you want to work on the most?
Oh, well, like when the kids leave, I was, I wanted to make sure, look, I'm a lifer. I want to be married forever. But I think that once the distraction leaves, you are left with the two people, you and me in a house. And wouldn't it be great to get past some of the things that we've been bumping up against for the past 26 years?
Like what?
Like,
Something
yeah,
specific.
just how to better communicate. It's nothing specific. It's kind of a
We're
general.
we're bad arguers.
Bad arguers, communicate better.
Yeah, it's like we have ups and downs,
Yep.
and everybody has ups and downs, but it's never just like even or flat.
Right.
And I was thinking like that's like a heartbeat, right? It's
Right.
up and down. If
Right.
you're flatlining, then it's probably dead,
Right.
right?
Yeah, I agree with that. Although I do like when it's mellow, and I don't like drama. I definitely boring. I would go towards boring any day of the week.
Are you saying I'm boring?
No, but I don't need excitement. I don't need that kind of excitement. I don't need to have makeup
sex?
Makeup sex. Like that's not that. I'd rather not do that. Although
That
it's
is
fantastic.
fun sex.
Yeah, it's fantastic.
Yeah, that is a good kind.
Yeah.
It's a good kind to have.
Yeah.
What do you think about? There are some people that are like serial. I don't know what to call them. Serial divorcers or serial marriers.
Right.
People who get divorced a lot. Like I'm looking at, when I was doing some research for this, Rupert Murdoch popped up.
Okay.
He's 91. He just got divorced for like the fifth or sixth time.
Jerry Hall, right?
Yes. At what point do you quit? At what point do you say, I'm either going to get married and stay married until the end?
What's my idea of like,
Yeah, like-
if for some reason you went completely insane and decided to divorce me, that would be it for me. I wouldn't get remarried.
You can't say that though.
You're asking me a question. I'm.
What if I died?
What if you died?
What if I died? Would
Okay.
you get remarried then?
No. For what reason?
Why? Well, why not?
I'm not going to have more kids
How do you know?
because I don't want more kids. I'll be an older dad.
Do you know how many dads I know older than you
Yeah.
that are just starting to have kids?
And those poor bastards they have no idea, because what happens next? You're talking about hip replacements, knee replacements, and they're going to be that dad. Not there's anything wrong with that dad, but I did it early, not by any. I didn't plan it that way. It just happened. We got really lucky. That's what we did when we did it. It was I thought it was too early. We should have had like a good year or 2 years just to ourselves. But no, I think that I'm looking forward to being a grandfather. I'm really looking forward to that. That's about as much parenting as I want.
Okay, well,
Yeah.
I mean, when I think about our kids, and our son is our age when we were first married, he's nowhere near ready to be married or
Right.
have a kid.
Right. Do you think we were more grown up, more mature at his age, at 25?
I think
Yeah,
we were.
Yeah, we were. Yeah, but he's been living on his own, and when the
No, I'm not saying it's not a mature. Like, he's a mature person. He can talk about things that I could never even process at his age.
Right.
Like, he is a very smart, sophisticated, raised in the city kind of kid. But on the flip side, he definitely is not like we were, like, in it. We were fully
yeah,
married, living on our own, talking about mortgages.
Yep.
We got pregnant, 5 months after we got married?
If that. Looking back on it, it seemed insane. And Lola took 4 years after Michael was, so I think that was like maybe God stepped in and said, I don't know if we want to like give these kids too many plates to start juggling through the air and spinning.
So here's my question to you. Do you have a deal breaker? Because I feel like I've tested you.
Oh my gosh, I've never really thought about that.
I want to know. That's why I want to know.
Yeah, like, I don't know, like
in this safe space.
Like if you like murdered like a bunch of people and you were a serial killer for like 20
Why
years.
does it go to a serial killer? Why can't it
if
be
you were
like
a serial killer, it would take a lot. It would take a tremendous amount. Like if you were living this life and you were really, really not the person. Like if I feared going to bed at night.
What if you woke up one morning and found out I faked my own death?
Oh, that you died and like all of a sudden.
But it was fake.
But it was fake, and
Yeah.
we're not divorced because you just died.
I just left you hanging there.
Yeah, that could be.
That's a deal breaker.
Well,
when I reemerge.
I mean, it depends what your reasoning was. What's your deal breaker?
What about if I cut you off sexually? Lack of intimacy.
Oh, okay. That's a good one. I think that could be a potential deal breaker.
Really?
I mean, unless you had some type of medical condition where like you lost the use of.
Like menopause.
But yeah, that's not happening.
No, but when I went through menopause, there were days where I was like, can you
Days.
please?
Those are days.
I mean,
Yeah.
months where I was like, can you please just give me a break?
Yeah, but you didn't. I didn't give you a break. There's never been months unless I was like, in another country. But yeah, if you just decided it's like, yeah, we're not having sex anymore, I would probably have a problem with that.
What was the hardest time for you in our marriage? Like what was in our marriage the one thing that stands out as like the time where you were like, I don't know if I can do this anymore? So in our marriage, the one thing that stands out is like the time where you were like, I don't know if I can do this anymore.
Gosh. Can you think of one?
Sweetie, I can think of like 12.
I can think of 12. But, I don't, I think that it always gets better. Like, if you just communicate and talk it through, literally there's nothing that's insurmountable. When you
My biggest complaint about you over the course of our marriage, and this is not recent because it definitely changed, and I don't know if I changed or if you changed or if it was some combination of change. But you used to
snore?
No. You used to be insanely jealous.
Oh, yes.
And that was a hard pill to swallow. It was really, it's very hard being married to somebody who is jealous.
Yeah.
And like you had jealousy of things that were not, like you had a perception of a scenario. Like, for example, best example ever. It was our first week of marriage because we didn't take our honeymoon until like
I was working.
You were working, and I went to visit you in Boston.
Yep.
And we went to this Italian restaurant, and the waiter was like a very cute old man. He was definitely in his 70s, if not 80s.
Right.
And
I remember this.
He said to me, he leaned down and he said, and for the principessa. Do you remember?
Right. Yeah. I got upset.
And I thought it was so cute that this little old man called me a princess.
Yeah.
And I looked at him and I gave him my order in a very smiley way. And he walked away, and you picked a horrible fight.
I remember
with me.
that. I remember that. Look, at age 25, I was pretty insane. But that jealousy thing definitely followed me for a while. I'm not jealous anymore.
I'm so grateful that you're not, because it really is like, it was the one thing that I I don't pray for things or people or stuff like that. I just sort of like pray that in general things will work out
Please,
and be
God,
okay.
don't let him be jealous.
I would just be like, please let him
Yeah.
lose this personality flaw. It's such
It's
such an
character
unattractive.
flaw. It's not even a personality flaw. It's a flaw of character. I agree with you. It's a character flaw. It's ugly, and as ugly as it feels to the person who has to be on the receiving end of it, it's such an ugly feeling inside. Because if this is any consolation, you know you're being crazy. The jealous person knows that this is wrong, and it's ugly, but they can't help it. And
So what changed is the question.
I don't know. I think, I wanted to do some work on myself. And that was one of the major things that I needed to work on because it was getting in the way.
So if there was something that you could change about me now or could have changed about me then, what would it be? Because that's the one thing I would have, I would have been like, if I could have disconnected that part.
Gosh, you haven't done this in such a long time. When you're pissed off on the phone, you hang up.
That's so bad.
Yeah.
It's so bad.
Yeah. The person, and sometimes if the person's like, let's say in Vancouver, and then you don't pick up the phone for like, a day,
Yeah.
a day and a half, it's quite unsettling.
Yeah, I know. That's a byproduct of how I grew up, though.
Yeah.
I come from
I
come
could
from a
play
family of famous
hanger-uppers. I would say that's the one thing that sticks out. But you haven't done it in a while.
I know. Well, because
I know why. I think one of the great benefits of going to marriage counseling,
Yes.
especially when things are good
yeah,
and you want them to get better, right?
yes,
Is that the old habits and the old behaviors that you kind of hung on to. I thought twice about doing them because I knew that within a week or 5 days, I would be accountable to somebody and that person would look at me like, you want to explain that?
right. Since you brought up marriage counseling, I think that our audience would benefit from speaking to one of the great clinical professors of psychiatry
I agree.
at NYU School of Medicine. She has actually been listening to our conversation this whole time. Poor woman. So let's bring into the conversation our marriage counselor herself. It's great to see you, Dr. Linda Carter, everybody.
It's great to see you, Kelly and Mark.
Yeah, hi.
So, Dr. Linda Carter, we want to explain to our audience that you are Linda Carter with an I, not a Y, and not the actress who played Wonder Woman on the 1970s TV show. Is that correct?
It's correct, but I still live in her shadow.
You know what? We disagree. We think that
disagree.
you have all the superpowers.
Yeah.
So we've been talking about surviving marriage, and I want to go back in time. When you first met us, we were doing our sessions kind of like today, like over Skype,
Yes.
right? But when we first came to your office for the first time, and I should say, her office smells like gardenias.
It does.
You're sitting in a gardenia bush. Is that a
Yes.
good description?
I love it. I love it.
So when you first met us, we first came into your office and you saw us in person. Did you spot any red flags? Was there anything alarming about us initially that you said these two are headed for the dumpster fire of divorce?
Not at all. In fact, you crossed your legs you sat next to each other and crossed your legs towards each other, which is a sure sign. It seemed as though there was a lot of warmth and humor and closeness and caring. I mean, that came through very quickly. And those are some of the things that I look for. How much energy and effort is going into the relationship? And from the beginning, I felt that existed for the two of you.
So we're talking today about the gray divorce, or people who are older and get divorced. And like Mark brought up earlier, although we don't have any outstanding or overt problems, we want to prevent them, right? So this is like our preventative treatment. We started seeing you during the pandemic, and a lot of people had their kids around a little bit longer. Kids took gap years. They decided not to go to school. They hunkered down with their parents. Like, we got all of our kids back. So we were like surrounded by kids, but then they left again. Did you see an uptick in couples that you were treating that went their separate ways as a result of the pandemic once the kids did clear out, or in general?
You know, I think it could go in one of two ways. The pandemic had that effect where good marriages improved. I mean, people enjoyed greater amounts of time with each other, being together, 24/7. Their moods improved, their feeling of connection improved. So that's with the basis of a good marriage. If there are underlying issues, then things came to the surface and became problematic. So I think it depends on the state of the marriage. So if you were good, it got better.
I agree with that.
We actually, because of the pandemic, spent the longest time together than we've ever spent in our marriage in total.
But then soon, like after the first wave, I went back to work. I was stuck in Canada for close to 10 months, and we saw each other maybe 2 weeks over 10 months. So I agree with you. I think if things are good and you're with each other, and I think it can be true also when you're apart. If it's a good marriage and a strong marriage, it can withstand that, because we were gone. We've never spent that much time apart.
I was going to ask you, how did you survive that separation? How did you stay connected?
We would FaceTime.
Were there rituals that you followed?
Yeah, there were definitely rituals.
There were rituals. We had, can I tell you something? We had sexual rituals that were so ludicrous.
No kidding.
Over FaceTime, but I became so alarmed at my appearance over FaceTime that I started rigging the computer to hang from a ladder. I'm not kidding. I hung the computer over a ladder so that I could look up to Mark so that he did not have to see what gravity was actually doing. So you get really close to yourself in situations where you're separated from your husband for long periods of time.
Yeah.
I was seeing one couple who actually for several months had to be apart because one was working in London and the other here in New York. And they developed several rituals to stay connected. And one ritual came up as a result of a session where it was suggested that they each send each other an emotionally meaningful piece of music every day.
Oh,
and that really bridged the gap. That really kept them connected because they would respond to that and then talk about it. And it was just a way of staying connected during the time apart.
Oh, that's beautiful.
That really is nice.
You would have been really good at that, Kelly.
Well, do you remember I had bought us these bracelets? So Mark wears a bracelet, I wear a bracelet. And anytime I touch my bracelet, his bracelet in Vancouver would touch him. It would vibrate.
I love that.
And so
where do you get that?
It's called Bond Touch.
Yeah.
This is not an ad. It's called Bond Touch. It's a really incredible.
It was really nice.
Yeah, it's a very nice device. So it would let us know that the other person was thinking about them.
That's an amazing way to stay connected.
Yeah.
I mean, really.
So how important is sex in a long-term marriage? Because during one of our sessions a few weeks back, you said to Dr. Carter that you had just recently figured out that sex and intimacy were two different things.
Yeah.
And it's one of those moments where I was like, really, dear? Recently? You just figured that out?
I'm a little, again, one of my character flaws. I'm going to blame it on the fact that I traveled so much. And so a lot had to happen in the time that I was home. Sometimes I'd be home for a week, and so it wasn't so pressed, or 2 weeks, but sometimes I was home for 36 hours. And so
you wanted to get it in.
I wanted to get the intimacy in and the sex in, and so
they became one and the same.
They became one and the same for such a long time.
It's different for different couples. I mean, some people are very sexual. Maintaining that sexual connection becomes very important. So the main thing is staying attuned to each other and listening to each other and empathizing with each other. Have you heard anything about the Harvard study of adult development? So it was an 85-year study where they looked at personality characteristics and they could find things that would predict long-term health and happiness. it's fascinating to see, but the couples, the oldest couples who are now in their 80s, they would call these couples every night and say, what did you do today? What felt good? What made you happy? And the married couples with the best relationships would say, I spent time with my wife or husband. We gardened together or took a walk. So at time together, energy spent with each other was a strong predictor of longevity, health, happiness, well-being in so many ways.
I think I told you that we last year, for the first time in our lives since our honeymoon, took a vacation, just the two of us.
Yeah, more than a weekend.
Yeah, like we actually took a vacation.
Yeah, 2 weeks.
And our favorite thing to do was we would go to this coffee shop called The Butcher and the Baker. And he and I would go and sit on this bench in the middle of town and watch the sunset. We didn't say a word. We were just holding hands, drinking our coffee. Sometimes like people's dogs would come up to play with us, but we would just sit there and watch the sunset. And it became
every day.
Became our everyday thing that we did. I think I can speak for both of us, the happiest and the most satisfied we had ever felt.
It's a powerful ritual that you developed with each other. First of all, holding hands in a committed couple, it reduces the whole fear adrenaline system. So it creates a sense of peace and calm.
We can only hold hands if we sit down. Because
my arms are so long and
his
hers.
arms are long and mine are short, and so when we stand, we cannot hold hands. So
this reminds me so much of when we would be in an argument, but we would be in a public place, and I was trying to melt the chill. And sometimes I would go to grab my wife's hand, and I know in a public setting it would look weird if I would go to grab her hand and she would pull away. So she would allow me to hold her hand, but it would be Dr. Carter, it would be the deadest hand. It would be like holding a dead hand. All life was out of it. So I agree. I think holding hands to me, I knew like we're done arguing about something or we're over it when she would actually like hold my hand. And you're right. It made me feel safe. It's scary when someone you love is angry with you, and I had to realize that that's okay. Like if someone that you love is angry with you, that's also okay, and you should give them space. And sometimes I wouldn't give her the space to be angry, and so I'd want to rush through because I don't like that feeling.
Yeah, it creates a real tension.
Yeah,
and sometimes when people get into an argument, and there are 4 kind of communication patterns that predict really bad arguments: criticism, defensiveness, contempt, stonewalling, which means shutting down. So if there is an argument and it starts to escalate, because you can't think and your brain goes absolutely haywire when there is that much tension and you're in fight or flight, the best thing to do is to call a timeout, to agree ahead of time. We're going to just call a timeout, go to a separate room, whatever, calm down, self-soothe, and then come back together, and the relationship looks entirely different.
We've made these deals, Dr. Carter, where we're like, we will, in times of calm, establish a safe word. Like if I say time out, that means I need a break and I don't want this to escalate and I don't want to say something I regret and I know that I get caught up in the moment and I don't want to be that person, so I'm going to need to walk away. And in an argument, it's as if I could say the safe word 1,000 times. I could throw the safe color in front of him, whatever the safe snack, whatever it is. It's like all bets are off. It all goes out the window. And he never like follows through with his part of the deal, which is, okay, I will let you walk away and cool off so that we can calm down and have a normal conversation. Having said that, how bad is it when I hang up on Mark? So how bad is it when I hang up on Mark?
Ask him.
It's horrible.
I'm sorry.
I accept your apology.
Yeah, I mean, that's like stonewalling. That's a complete cutoff and leaves the person who's been hung up on, in this case, Mark, feeling just unmoored unmoored.
Yeah.
What makes you hang up?
It's a big thing in my family. People tend to hang up when confronted with things they don't want to hear, or if they perceive the person speaking to them is not being very respectful. So that is a learned behavior, but I know better and I know that it bothers him. And so I've been focusing on not doing it so much. Mark claims it's because I'm afraid that I'm going to be called out about it during therapy, but that honestly has never occurred. Like, it's never occurred to me that therapy is like a punitive thing. Like, I love therapy, so that would not occur to me.
I just think that if you know, like, I've never heard you actually cop to knowing that it's really bad. And
You know what he likes to do, Dr. Linda?
Tell
He
me.
likes to apologize in therapy. Like, he makes a public statement. And I'm like,
that's not true.
You could have told me this outside the door.
I did.
It doesn't happen outside of
does.
therapy?
Sometimes, but sometimes he likes to like make a big show.
I want to impress. I want Dr. Carter to like me.
Dr. Carter,
I just had a thought. Instead of hanging up, which completely cuts off the
Yes.
other person, can you say time out or something that's communicating that you need some time away from this? And
will
you come back to it.
I'm going to try not to just evacuate a conversation like that, but I will try to announce a timeout if Mark promises to honor the timeout.
I know, but you got to understand that you sometimes when you call the safe word, you go and this is just a metaphor, okay? She's never attacked me physically. Let me just say that right now. But she'll kick me in the nuts, punch me in the face, throw poop on me, and then and she's like, and now safe word. And the reason why you know this is true, Dr. Carter, is because she's laughing right now.
Is that the sign? Is that the sign?
Yeah, and so she'll do that on the phone too. 1, 2, 3, and now it's time out. Am I right?
Sometimes
with
you're right.
timeouts, there's a very important thing about timeouts, which is when you say timeout, you have to say when you're going to be back. So it's not an endless forever timeout.
Right.
That's interesting. That's
I'll
something.
call you back in 15 or 20 minutes or however much time you need to self-soothe.
And the time. Do you see that I'm writing all this down? Because I like to be a good student. Yeah. Do you have what's the number one takeaway exercise for our listeners that may be in marriage or a long-term relationship? What's a good long-term relationship exercise?
This is one that I've done with many couples at all stages of the life cycle, and it's powerful. Usually I suggest that people do it in bed as they're about to go to sleep, because then it seeps down into their subconscious and even their dreams and sleep. But how it goes is that each one of you makes a statement of appreciation. Kelly, why don't you start? Now, Mark does not respond, but after you finish your statement, he says, Kelly, I appreciate whatever.
Yeah, I could do that. You want to try it? You ready?
You go first.
You're not going to fall asleep, are you?
No.
Because the mere suggestion that we do this in bed, I already see Mark is starting to get sleepy. Mark, I appreciate you always showing up and trying your best and really being a consummate partner in my work life, but in my marriage. You are a real partner, and I really am thankful for that.
Kelly, I really appreciate how much you spoiled Joaquin and I this weekend. The food you made was fantastic. It was made with love and with care and concern. You took care of us in a way and took care of me in a way that was just it was beautiful. I appreciate that you go to these stupid wrestling matches with me. And I know you have no interest in it whatsoever, but you go with me because you don't want me to be alone. And I really appreciate that.
So nice. I mean, you could each say just one thing and go back and forth. You're each listing 10 things that you appreciate, which is nice.
We're
It's
very
a-
competitive.
It's amazing that if you make a man pasta with sauce from a jar, he is like, feels spoiled.
In heaven,
Yeah.
Yeah.
I see it.
Isn't that amazing? Well, Dr. Carter, I want to thank you very much for being in our pilot episode of Let's Talk Off Camera. Really appreciate you being here. You've given us tremendous insights. And I think this exercise, people, our listeners, will certainly try at home. We're going to do it, not in front of everybody else here. We're going to do it tonight.
Let's do it.
And we'll do it every night.
Yeah. And
That's
I want to
great.
say thank you for also not only being in Kelly's podcast, but being in our lives.
Yeah, we're very grateful.
I appreciate that very much. So
You know what
thank
we're
for
going to do
saying that.
tonight, Dr. Carter? We're going to come over when you're getting ready for bed. And we're just going to say that to you right before you go to sleep.
I appreciate that thought.
Thank you so much.
Bye,
and Mark,
Linda.
I want to thank you as well.
Aw,
It's really a pleasure to have you here.
I'm so
And
proud of you.
You're proud of me
Yeah.
for talking more?
Yeah, just doing what you're doing. You're the best.
You're the best. I love you.
I love you.
Albert Chan, that was kind of amazing.
I mean, unbelievable.
Don't you love Dr. Linda Carter?
I mean, obsessed. She's incredible. I also loved Mark saying, talking about men and intimacy and learning. I mean, because I agree. I think it's a very difficult thing for men to understand the difference.
Isn't it funny, though, that we had been married at the time 25 years, and he just figured out that intimacy and sex were two different things?
It's a hard thing. And listen, being a gay man, it's a hard thing to unlink the two. It's just I don't know. It's a male thing.
But he's an amazing communicator.
Yeah.
Like he cares so much. It's so evident. Obviously, you can't see this because it's not on camera, but the two of you lit up the second that each of you were talking. It was really beautiful to see. And I just think that people don't express their gratitude often enough. I think we just go through life and we just assume that people know how we feel.
Well, anyway, this is it, guys.
It's amazing.
It was awesome.
Episode 1. This
So
is our
fun.
first podcast. And like I said, we are trapped in a sea of podcasts. But if you liked what you heard, even if you didn't, tell your friends. Let's Talk Off Camera is available every week on Stitcher, on the SXM app, and all major podcast listening platforms. Whatever that means. Just look for us. You can't miss it because it's a highly edited photo of me looking really glamorous with a green background. And it says, Let's Talk Off Camera. So, let's talk off camera next week. Bye, everybody.